All right, guys, what is up? Welcome into another episode of GC Live presented by our guy Clint Hammond of CMG Home Loans. We're going to get to our very special guest, Darren Uscher, here in a moment. I am Wes. He is Chris. We got Darren, who's going to have to sit through a couple of these ad reads for us. But as always, shout out to our guy Clint, ClintHammond.com, 803-422-6797. NMLS number is 71597. If you're new in the area, if you need to buy a home, if you've thought about home ownership, do what I did. Call my guy Clint, 803-422-6797. And even if home ownership is something that's long off in the future for you, Clint can go ahead and help walk you through that process. Big-time supporter of our show and big-time supporter of the Gamecocks as well.
And another supporter of our show to tell you about is our friends over at Ferry Chevrolet. Been around since 1926. So if you are in the market for a new or used vehicle, make sure you check them out, 803-937-4531, or check them out at ferrychevrolet.com, F-A-I-R-E-Y, ferrychevrolet.com. Fourth generation dealer Joseph Ferry. New and used vehicles, check out their inventory and financing options on ferrychevrolet.com.
Yeah, appreciate those great sponsors. Let's bring in our great guest now. I think it was about maybe a year ago we last had you on the show, Darren. Let's bring in Gamecocks Director of Player Personnel, Darren Uscher, who is nice enough to join us here on the show to talk, some recruiting, some portal, some roster construction. So much is new in the college football world right now in those areas. And Darren, you've been out on the road. Obviously, it's a dead period right now, but you've been on the road, I guess, going back last week, maybe the week before. So just constant change in your world, man. But appreciate you taking the time, man. How you doing today?
Yeah, appreciate y'all having me on. It's always a good time to catch up with y'all, and y'all do those ad reads really good, by the way. So I know your sponsors probably appreciate that. So heck of a read by both of y'all on those. I'm doing good, man. We're excited. Got all of our portal guys in the building. They've been doing. This is the second week of, or I guess today was the 10th day. So second week of winter workouts. So get to see them, move some weight around and then do some drill work on the field a little bit. So it's always fun to see all the hard work from the recruiting class in high school and then in the portal already translate out onto the field into the weight room.
Darren, I remember when Coach Beamer was asked, I think this was right after maybe the high school class was signed, and he was asked, hey, what positions are going to be a priority in the portal? And obviously it's always fluid, but he very quickly mentioned the trenches, going to have to add on the O-line, going to have to add on the D-line, mentioned wanting to add some guys in the running back room as well to kind of get your numbers up there. But certainly anybody can look at the numbers and say, all right, they went out to, in some ways, kind of completely remake this offensive line room and to add some additional experience kind of in that defensive tackle room. So let's just start there broadly with the O-line, man. What did you guys sort of seek to accomplish as you dove into the guys that were available? And how well do you feel like the process went in terms of getting the right 8 guys at that position?
Yeah, I think we feel great about it right now. And that's just right now as we sit here, February 3rd, right? But that's just on paper. And then, they've got to develop. Football's a developmental game, and even if they've played a lot of football, they still need to develop. And what we wanted to do is, with the guys that were leaving, we needed to replace those guys, and I think had a very our plan of attack there was we set out from the jump to get more experience. So our plan, it was always that from the beginning. So this started way before even probably the season was over. Those are the conversations that we started to have. And, not necessarily from an older standpoint. It just happens to be when you're older, you play more football, right? So I think we needed more experience up front. And we look to sort of shape our board around some experience level and some guys that have played a lot of football. And I think that's what we went out and did on the O-line in particular. And as we all know, it's a line of scrimmage league. So we wanted to get some experience at that position. And on the flip side, on the D-line as well. The same thing. We needed to replace two guys in Nick Barrett and Monkel Goodwine, who played a lot of football for us over the last couple of years, and Monkel 2 years and Nick Barrett 5 years, right? So who played a lot of football last year for us. So we needed to replace a lot of experience with experience, and I think we did that. These guys bring a lot of football and snaps with them, in addition to just leadership qualities, right? I think anytime you play a lot of ball, you don't necessarily need to be a rah-rah vocal leader, but with experience comes some sort of maturity and leadership. And those qualities, I think we all manifested themselves in the guys that we brought in. So we're really looking forward to seeing what those guys do with a new, offensive line coach and Coach Clem and Coach Jason Smith, and seeing how they fit into Coach Browell's system. And I think there's a renewed energy and a sense of competition, right? It's a core value of our program. So the more guys that we could bring in at that position group, the better. And we're excited to see what the future takes shape here, going from winter workouts into spring ball.
And Darren, follow up there on the offensive line. So when you bring in, the volume that you guys brought in, you're obviously going to get, obviously it's an experienced group overall, but you're going to get varying experience levels. You got some guys that this is their last year, some guys with multiple years. You've got some guys who have more positional versatility, some guys who are probably maybe have played just one spot at their previous stops, at their previous school stops. But when you look at this group, can we kind of run down where you guys kind of envision all these players factoring in? I mean, it seems like, for instance, Carter Miller, probably a center, right? Jakarius Peak, probably a tackle. But are there any guys out of that group where you feel like, hey, this guy may be able to play 2, 3, 4 different spots for us, depending on the need?
Yeah, I think you're always looking to find guys on the offensive line that can give you position flex. That makes them extremely valuable, especially in this league, especially going into a 9-game SEC schedule where we know guys are going to get banged up, and it's a physical line of scrimmage league, like I said before. So the Kojo Pokus of the world, the Bubes of the world, those guys that have played tackle at their previous institutions, but also can play guard as well. I think Shed Surratt coming back can play tackle, can also hop inside and play guard as well. And we'll kind of see how that shakes out, throughout the spring ball. That's ultimately a Coach Clem and decision, and Coach Bryles and Coach Beamer decision on where those guys end up. But we tried to get as many guys as possible that could give us some position flex. Another one would be a Dane Arnett that we signed from Ferris State. He played right tackle for them there, but obviously he has the body type to play guard as well. Real thick, strong guy who can anchor. So I think there's a multitude of guys that can either play inside or they can play tackle if we got in a bind. And then we've got a lot of guys returning too. Some of the guys that return that have a lot of position flex as well. So, I think what we'll do is try different things out, see what the best 5 look like. And yeah, I think Carter, you could probably schedule in as a guy that would play probably primarily center, along with Nolan Hay. And but Nolan's played some guard in his career as well. So I don't want to put any of these guys really in a box right now. Jakarius Peak, has, obviously he started at left tackle for NC State, but the year prior he played right tackle. So, that's an awesome problem for us to have. I think you can maybe say where guys are going to be at as we sit here February 3rd, but again, that could all change once we get into spring ball and things like that. And that's the exciting piece. That's the piece that I'm really looking forward to seeing, is how this group does as we progress through winter workouts into spring ball.
Darren, there's always going to be kind of a projection piece when it comes to recruiting, whether you're projecting, like a high school guy to the SEC, or a quote smaller conference up to the SEC. But Peak is someone who comes in and you're saying, look, we've got film of this guy playing, not just playing, but playing incredibly well at the Power 4 level. You look at the rankings, like he literally, when he commits to you guys, was the top ranked offensive tackle in the transfer portal. So that's an example of like going out and saying, look, we're going to do what we need to do to prioritize this guy and fill this very important need. When you guys kind of turned on the film with Peak, what can you tell us in terms of insight, like what you saw from him as a player, what stands out, and kind of how he fits into Kendall Briles' system here?
Yeah. Athletic freak. So, if y'all look at that Bruce Feldman's freak list that Nick Harbor has been on since he became in college.
Since he was born.
Yeah, exactly. Peak's been on that list too. So this is a guy that although he's not your 6'6", tackle, long statured guy, he is so light on his feet. He's extremely athletic, but he's got long arms. But he's also extremely powerful, and extremely strong and heavy-handed, right? And what you see on tape against the competition he's going against in the ACC, which is legit. There's some really good pass rushers that come out of the ACC now, and so it's not like he's coming from a lower level or anything like that. And no disrespect to anybody that is, but it just translates perfectly. He's also really smart when it comes to football. So it's an easy plug and play for us at whatever spot that ends up. You'd love for it to be your left tackle. I just don't want to put anybody in a box right now, being it's February 3rd. But that's a guy you go out and get, and we had the resources in order to do so. We had our eye on him for a long time, and obviously he's the type of player that can be the foundational piece of a program. And with our quarterback, we wanted to make sure that his blind side was protected. And I know that sounds like it's cliche and it's easier said than done, but when you find somebody like him, you don't pass up the opportunity to get him. And so he's been a welcome addition, and he's hit the ground running. And I think a piece of him that maybe doesn't show up necessarily on game tape, but that we've already seen is that man. He runs hot. He runs hot, and he's got a fire to him. He's already changed the whole vibe. I think in that position room, he's a leader in workouts, and that was something that we wanted to target in this class, especially in that room, in that O-line room, is not only, like I said, guys with experience and snaps under their belt, but that had a little stuff to them. Right. And so, with Lenor's coming back, we wanted to make sure he had the protection he needed, and felt very comfortable coming back and sitting in that pocket and maybe stepping up in that pocket and getting that ball out on time when he needs to. And it all starts with, with the left tackle. And we're hoping that Jakarius can come in and do that for us.
Darren, I want to take us to kind of hand in hand there, since we're talking offensive side of the ball, offensive line, get into some run game stuff. And so let's talk about the running backs, right? This was a position that I think Wes and I, as we were kind of preparing to cover the portal, God, we wonder which direction this thing's going to go, right? Because number one, there's the retention piece. And you guys ended up retaining the three guys that could come back in Jawan, Matt, Isaiah. Those guys all have experience. They all have upside potential still to go. But I think that the thing aside from that we were wondering is, all right, how many backs does South Carolina go out and try to get, right? Is it one guy? Is it two guys? I don't know if we had three on the radar per se, but that's what you end up getting. You've now got a 6-man running back room in terms of scholarship players. Walk us through the process of, like, number one, what was the decision-making process of how many you wanted to go target? Was it kind of a moving target? Did you go in with, hey, we want 2 or 3? And then walk us through, the class that you ended up assembling with the 3 guys that you brought in.
Yeah, great question. I think your ideal number is always 5, especially in the SEC. And now going to a 9-game SEC schedule, you need a healthy minimum 5 running backs. Right. And, I wasn't here in that 23 season, but I know y'all remember this program was low on running backs. And so you can't have enough good, capable backs in this conference. We wanted to create competition. And so we had the three guys returning, and it wasn't necessarily easy to retain all those guys either. So those are good players, and people wanted those guys. But they all wanted to be here, and ultimately we're glad they are. And we also want to go out and get some other pieces to help complement some of the other bodies that we had in the room. And I think all six of those guys' best football is ahead of them. That's what's exciting about that. They all have a little bit of experience, and they all kind of complement each other in different types of ways. And this is football in 2026. You can't just really go into a season with one back that's far head and shoulders above the others. I don't really see it that way with anybody in that room. And again, competition's a core value of our program. So we're trying to bring as many of those guys in there. If you kind of see, they're all in that same sort of mold that Coach Drayton really likes, at 6 foot, 6'1" range, 205 plus to 210, 212 ish, fluctuating. Big, powerful, strong running backs. If you watched any of the Penn State football team last year, they had, Katron Allen and Nick Singleton. That's what Coach Drayton wants his backs to look like. Not everyone's going to be Bijan Robinson, but that he coached at Texas, but Bijan-esque. I hope one of these guys is. I think some of them have the potential to, be really good. So they all kind of have a different skill set. Some more powerful than others, some more finesse than others, some more speed than others, and we'll kind of see how they all kind of fit into this new system that Coach Briles is installing. And we'll probably end up using a good amount of them during the season.
What was your take, Darren, on Jabri Wallace-Coleman in particular, in that he hasn't really played much college ball, but with Coach Drayton, he was around him every day. So I got to imagine that's a little bit of a he had the firsthand evaluation there that maybe every other school did not have when the kid enters the portal. So I think with him and with Christian Clark, who we got to see in the bowl game for Texas, really have a great day for those guys. You got two guys that I feel like haven't had a chance to do it yet, but you go back and you watch the high school film and you're like, okay, both were incredibly highly recruited kids.
Yeah, I think you pop Jabri's high school film on, you're like, I would take that guy any day of the week, right? So that's one. And then two, if it's a guy that Coach Drayton recruited and wanted out of high school, you need to trust that. All right. And this is a guy that, could have had his pick of any job in the country, and he chose to come here to South Carolina to be our running backs coach. So, and he's done it at the highest level in the NFL and for some really big time programs, including Texas and Penn State and others. So that familiarity was huge, but that's not to say that Jabri is any less of a player. You pop his tape on, and there's clearly a reason why every team in the country wanted him. He was at one time committed to Georgia and ended up flipping to Penn State. So he has all the ability in the world. And then obviously Christian, there's a familiarity there. There's some connections as well with some of us in the program to some of his connections. And you saw what he was capable of doing once he's healthy and gets his opportunity at Texas, which had a loaded running back room. Sometimes you're just stuck behind other guys like Trey Wasner. That's a really good player in his own right, and he ends up going into the portal. And so Christian got his moment and shined. And so it was something that I think showed everyone what he's capable of. So they're all capable, just like Matt is capable, just like Jawarn's capable, just like Isaiah is capable. They've all shown those flashes in their career, and we're hoping that it all kind of comes together to have a really successful running back room going into 2026.
Darren, let's go a little bit more general, just because you've mentioned Coach Drayton specifically and getting to know him and how he operates here before we get back on portal specifically. You've been out on the road. You've had a chance to be in the office with several of the new coaches that are going to be on staff with Coach Drayton, Coach Briles, Coach Clem, Deion Barnes, also coming over from Penn State. What have been your impressions of these guys and, just watching them interact with coaches, families, recruits, on campus and off campus, and just what they're going to bring to the program?
Man, it's like it's almost refreshing, not to say anything about anyone that's not here anymore, but it's new people, right? And there's a reason why all these guys were at major big time programs. And that's the coolest part for me is seeing how they've come in here and hit the ground running. There was no like him hawing around it. It was like, no, boom. And so we gave them a list, and it was like they're on the phone, boom, 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 boom. And the sense of urgency that they have, and then also, without even being here that long, the sense of passion that they already have for this place, I think for me is not only encouraging, but it makes you proud as an alum to kind of know that Coach Beamer chose the right people to be in those positions that kind of know what we need, right? And I think that was needed. It's just some renewed enthusiasm. Not to say that that's against anyone that's not here anymore. That's not what I'm saying at all. It's just new guys with a new sense of energy, new sense of enthusiasm, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to be successful. And in my experience, doing this, that's what it takes, man. It's everyone all in alignment, from Coach Beamer on down, and relaying his message. And for me, being super passionate about this place and recruiting and the transfer portal and all that, they are just as passionate and as enthusiastic as all of us are. So, when you're all kind of operating on the same wavelength, it makes it fun. Being on the road with those guys is fun. You get to know people more that way, and they're super passionate about what they do. They're all really good family men, good men of character, good men of faith. And I think our guys are really excited about, having them here too. And there's just a kind of a new sense of energy with them here. And you use that as a springboard into, winter workouts and into spring ball. And then away we go.
Darren, you mentioned being able to go on the road. That was something typically, at least in the past, director of player personnel was more kind of operating home base back at the ops facility. How has that been for you to be able to get out and actually get into some of these high schools, meet or just see some of the coaches you already know at the high school level, sit down with kids and their families? And what are maybe some advantages for you to be able to go out on the road now and do some like just in-person relationship building and evaluation?
Yeah, I mean, I still think, in this world of NIL and all these crazy finances that we talk about, relationships still matter. These are 17 to 22-year-olds, right? And they're family members, and especially being down here in the South, I think relationships are extremely important. Their family members want to know where they're sending their sons, that they're going to be taken care of, and that still matters. So to be able to have that face-to-face interaction, but also being the person that is going to talk about the financial aspect of it, I think it's awesome to be able to do that face-to-face instead of over the phone and via text message or through an agent, which I still think is it's not like we neglect that piece, but to be able to put a face to the name, or to be able just to sit down and just have a conversation, eye to eye, face to face, man to man, right? I think it's more impactful. All right, so I think it's awesome that Coach Beamer's allowed me to do that. I pride myself on relationships, and I like to be involved and have a lot of relationships with every single guy that we have on our board, and fortunate enough to have those relationships. And then you get to see some things, workouts and basketball games and wrestling matches. And I like to say I'm an evaluator of talent, but ultimately at the end of the day, you're an evaluator of people, right? And so you're constantly evaluating things, and how they're interacting with their coaches and all those sort of things. And so I'm able to take some very diligent notes, and maybe get to know a lot of high school coaches as well, and other people that are influential in their lives. And then I think it also allows the ability to meet with representatives of their family, that whether that's an agent or it's a family friend that's helping them out with this process now. That's not really taboo anymore. That's how this process works. So to be able to do both of those things at the same time, has been super beneficial for us. I think we're already starting to reap the benefits of some of those relationships with the portal class that we were able to sign this year. And so just continuing to try to build on those things. And, I also think it helps our coaches out too, especially when I pick Coach Beamer up from the airport, that he can text in the passenger seat while he makes me drive in the 9-degree snow. So I was able to do that stuff. So it's just helping each other out, but still coordinating all the travel though. But I'd be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to my assistant director Brian Bachman, who kind of took over all that travel stuff once I was able to hire him last summer from Oregon. And so been able to have him sort of be the liaison. That's the home base, so I can afford the opportunity to go out on the road, and that's planes, trains, and automobiles, man. And so when there's an ice storm or snowstorm, it throws the private planes that were afforded to be able to use, which is awesome, through our administration. It helps us get places a lot quicker and more efficient. And then Caroline Coleman, who helps us out with rental cars and hotels. And there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that people may not know, but we have an awesome group of people here that help us out with all that stuff.
Let's talk about another person behind the scenes that, it's known now that Rex Hogan has joined your operation over there from a scouting, recruiting standpoint. Give us your take from your standpoint on just working with Rex so far, what you know about him, what you've seen from him, and basically just, how he's going to integrate into the whole recruiting and scouting operation there.
Yeah, I mean, it's been awesome. It's been extremely supportive, right? That's the biggest thing is, I think there are a lot of different ways to skin a cat, right? And I think Coach Beamer's philosophy has always been less is more. So we always haven't had the biggest staff, but I think as this thing has grown with the transfer portal and being out on the road, you need more people, more eyes, right? And our goal was to get some more trained eyes, if that makes sense. And it's not that anyone else's weren't as good, but just more experience, right? Just like adding experience on our O-line, we just wanted some more experienced eyes to watch some tape and hey, are we seeing this right? Do you agree with this take on this guy? If not, why? Let's have a healthy discussion about it. Just a different way of looking at things, right? And so, not to mention all the different types of relationships that he brings to the table with different agents. So I've got my relationships that I have, he has his. You never know when you want to leverage one of those relationships to help acquire a player. And as we go, this thing is about relationships, not only now in high school recruiting with the parents in the sphere of influence, but representatives and agents are a massive piece of this now. And if you don't have relationships with some of those agents and agencies, you're not going to get the players that you want. So he's got a wealth of experience that I think can help our whole department in a different way of looking at things. I think I've learned a ton from him. He's learned a ton from me, and we're really kind of working in tandem on all those things, along with Brian. And then, our back room that we have all of our player personnel assistants. In the time it takes to be on the phone constantly negotiating deals and between retention and acquisition, I felt like I wasn't dedicating enough time to the development of the guys in the back room that were grinding the tape and the film. So Rex is another individual that can help those guys and hey, this is what we're looking for, helping those guys develop a little bit more in their career. And because ultimately that's what it's all about, is we're in the business of developing people, whether it's football players or people in this in our facility. So it's been an awesome resource just for myself. I think he'd say the same about me, and he's been a welcome addition to our program that we're really looking forward to having. And then once they're here too, our players, the portal guys, just we're constantly evaluating them, right? So another set of eyes too, that's a little bit separate from the coaching staff, right? So myself, him, and Brian, to sort of, what we see, because sometimes we'll see something that the coaches may not see because they're so focused on something at practice, right? So we're constantly evaluating and giving feedback to the coaches, giving feedback to Coach Beamer. So just another set of trained eyes, and I don't think you can have enough of those these days.
Darren, we got to thank one more great sponsor of this show. So When you've been out on the road, have you encountered any snow? Like
A lot.
a lot. All right. You know what you need, man? You needed one of these bad boys. You needed actually two of them.
I need those, man. I need those boots.
We might can help you out with some of these, man. These are from our friends at bruntworkwear.com/GC. Special code right now. You can get hooked up with a couple of these. $10 off from our friends at Brunt. And boys, we had some actual true snow here in Columbia, South Carolina, believe it or not. So you know what I did? I threw on my Brunt workwear boots and I trudged out in the snow. Wasn't slipping. I was warm, Darren. I was in great shape.
You could have sent a pair of Brunt boots over to me for our junior day that we had in the snow on Saturday. So I'm looking forward to my next pair. Where next time I can get a pair of Brunt boots.
We're gonna hook you up, man. And hey, I'll tell you what, even dude, as a short king over here, you even get a little. I get a little boost in these.
I need a little boost. Anytime I can get a boost, man, I'll take it.
We're all right there, I think, on that one. So shout out to our friends at Brunt, y'all. If you're listening, if you're watching, check those out. Another great sponsor of our show here on GC Live. Back to business, Darren. We've talked about a lot of guys you've brought in, but obviously one of the biggest storylines of the entire offseason was Lenor Sellers making the decision to return. I can't help but get excited, though, about the thought of seeing some of the things that Kendall Briles has done with quarterbacks of all different types of skill sets, really. And then thinking about plugging Lenoris, who has, like, as we know, like as much upside as anybody in the world, I feel like. What are your thoughts on just getting him back and then those two guys kind of collaborating and hopefully putting Lenoris in a spot where he can have this huge season and go get drafted, in the top 10?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit it. That's the goal, is for him to get drafted in the top 10. If that happens, we had a very successful season. Let's just be honest. But it all started with that, right? It was this goes back to probably mid-October, even early October. And obviously things didn't go the way we wanted them to go. Things didn't go the way he wanted them to go personally on the field, right? And so as the season sort of progressed, you start to have conversations, with his camp, meaning his, representatives and his family, right? Not to distract him from the season. And this wasn't with him. This was separate, right? But that's part of this now. Just, you're evaluating where things are, right? And it's week to week. Because you go out 1 week in this league, you can change your draft stock, as y'all know, being in the SEC. So just getting the feedback that we were getting, right, from the people that we know in the NFL, between Coach Beamer knowing a lot of NFL personnel, people, myself, others, right, and then his camp getting their information kind of independently, just kind of meeting. I can't tell you how many meetings I had with his camp over the last couple months. And I will say this, like, he wanted to be here, right? He was either going to, make the decision to go to the next level or be a Gamecock. So there was never any doubt. All right. It was just making that right decision for him and his family, whether to, forego his final year and well, one more. He technically has another year, but that's but whether to stay or to go, right? That's all it was going to be. And so we wanted him to make the best informed decision for himself. And after coming to talking with a lot of people and having a lot of those meetings, I think he ultimately made a very, very mature decision to return to school. I think one that's never easy when you're potentially leaving generational wealth on the table, right? And being a potential top 10 pick in the NFL draft. But I also think he knew there was a lot that he left out on the field. And there's a lot of things left that he wanted to do and that he wasn't necessarily ready yet. And he's got a lot to develop. And that's the amazing part of all this is that I don't even think he has hit his 75% of the potential that he has. And so that was a piece of it. The other piece of it was seeing who Coach Beamer was going to hire, right? And so I think it was a perfect fit once Coach Brawls was hired. Then ultimately Lenoris made the decision to want to return to school, and we included him in our portal acquisition process. And don't get it twisted. It's not like he was in here telling us who we needed to go after and stuff like that. He was a welcome resource, right? To one, hey, how do you see this guy fitting in? Hey, do you like this guy? And maybe we disagreed or we agreed. It's not like we took his word over Coach Beamer's. It wasn't anything like that. It was more so just including him in the process. And in turn, I think gave him a little bit more trust in everything, made him feel a part of everything. Not that he wasn't before, but it was just awesome to kind of see our relationship developed. His relationship with everybody sort of developed in that way. Spent a lot of time up here watching tape with me. And then, once Coach Bryles got here, their relationship has now blossomed. And he was very influential in the acquisition process of our receivers and our offensive linemen. Because let's be honest, these guys know who he is, right? And once they're in the portal and we're going after them, they want to get a DM from Lenor Sellers way more than they want to get a DM from me. All right. And yeah, I'm the guy that ultimately, puts a contract in front of them. But, when they get the verified, 90,000 follower Lenor Sellers DM, they're going to open that one a lot faster. So we used him as a resource, and he wanted to do that. It's not like it was anything forced. And, he wanted to do it because ultimately it helps him. Yes, but it helps the program. And he's a kid that's from the state, and he wants he wants us to be successful and wants to leave a legacy. Right. And I think it was an extremely mature decision of him and his camp, and the opportunity to come back and kind of finish what he started, so to speak. And because I think we all know the type of talent that he has, and I think that's what's exciting going into this next season. And he knows what we had to do to surround him with the pieces in order for us to be successful. And I think we did that.
Darren, so more general again on the retention piece, and you've been very upfront about just the reality of where things are now. 5 years ago, we weren't talking about putting contracts in front of high school players or certainly transfer portal players or anything like that. But the retention piece, not just for Lenoris, but for, I feel like fans talk the most about Lenor Sellers, Dylan Stewart, Nick Harbor, but there are a bunch of others in there that other schools would have loved to have, J.R. Johnson and J.O. and Vakari Swain and Shed Surratt, on and on and on. There's a long list of those guys. So can you just speak to, from a resource standpoint, the reality of needing to have what it takes financially to retain a class, but also the piece that Coach Beamer spends so much time on, and that is culture, right? Because I feel like you can have all the money in the world, but to attract the right kind of guys, you do need culture. You can also have a phenomenal culture, and there's a certain financial reality that to attract some of these big time guys and to retain big time guys, you've got to have the financial backing too.
Yeah, and I mean that's a great question. I think it starts with the culture aspect, right? If you don't have that, the guys wouldn't want to stay here to begin with. I think it would be very rare to find a guy that stayed here that didn't want to ultimately stay, right? It's not like we overpaid to keep guys to stay. Like that's not they stayed because they loved it here. They just had to make fiscal sense as well. That's a reality now. You can be the get off my lawn guy all you want, but that's the reality of college football now. And that's ultimately my job and Coach Beamer's job to come up with a number that fits what they're looking for, and also fits what we have to do, so we have enough to go out and obtain more talent, right? But if they didn't want to be here, they would leave, right? Because there's always going to be somebody that has more money that's willing to pay more, whether they're in our conference or not. I don't think that really matters, but it starts and ends with the culture piece, and I'm a firm believer in that. I always have been, and I think our culture is as strong as ever. I think the people that want to downplay that, I don't think they understand truly what culture means. And again, it's not just something that you throw up on a wall and you say. It's a literally, how I describe it, it's a living and breathing organism. And that may sound super nerdy and weird, but culture is like a real thing, and it shifts daily. It shifts by the minute, because if something negative happens, how does the culture react to that? Right? That's why it's a living, breathing thing, in my opinion. It's a roller coaster. It's up and down. Now, every day is not going to be hunky dory, man. Like, but that's when culture shows itself the most, is in moments like that. But also when things are going good and no one's talking about culture, how do you sustain that? How do you sustain that, right? And I think there's many great examples of that, and everyone wants to show and talk about Indiana, and I think they have phenomenal culture. When you know how hard it is to go 16-0, right? Like, that's culture to me. It is blocking out the outside noise of everyone telling you how good you are, but also when you're doing bad, also everyone telling you how bad you are. And so that if those guys didn't want to be here to answer your question, they wouldn't. Now, being at the day and age we're in the SEC, you need to have some financial backing and some resources. And I am super, super proud, one, to be an alum of this place, but also to know that the resources that Jeremiah Donati, Jeff Crane, and Hillary Cox afforded myself and Coach Beamer in the transfer portal. And that is the biggest understatement of all time. And I wish everyone could really, there's a lot, I'm not going to talk about the specifics, obviously, but y'all, we have extremely high support from the highest people on down. And I think that's so massive. It is massive. It is everything. If we didn't have that, I'm probably not sitting on this interview with you right now, because we did a really bad job in the transfer portal and we did not acquire the people that we needed to. And I may not even have a job. No, I'm joking on that piece, but I wouldn't be happy. Right. And not to say that money equals happiness, but the financial resources afforded us the opportunities to acquire the right talent in order for us to have a successful season on the field. Right. And again, we still need to coach them and develop them, but we checked off the boxes we needed to check up to this point, being February 3rd. Right. And I would say from this point last year to where we are now is even night and day. Right. And so obviously that starts with, our president, Michael Amarides, for affording us this opportunity, and Thad Westbrook, the chairman of the board, for giving us all the resources that we need, and affording Jeremiah Donati, our athletic director, the ability to help us in that regard. Right. And I probably talked to Jeff Crane and Jeremiah more than I did my family members during this whole process. And so it was a very much, we were very much all aligned, right? And they were in the loop on what was going on in every single scenario. And they weren't telling us, hey, what to spend. Don't get it twisted on that. They weren't micromanaging. It was more so like, I want them to know what's going on, right? Just as much as, they wanted to know, right? And just keeping them in the loop, because this thing's changing. And sometimes you hear stuff or see stuff online and you're just like, that sounds crazy. There's no way that's true, but it's true. And if you bury your head in the sand, then you miss out on said player. Then you have a hole in your offensive line. Like, it all matters, right? And then, I think someone that gets overlooked in our athletic department is Hillary Cox, who helps do all of our contracts. And guys, every single kid in our team that is afforded NIL opportunities has to sign a contract now, right? Whether that's through rev share or some other means. And she does all of them, right? And she's getting red lines from lawyers back and getting those turned around in time. And so while another school is sending theirs, and it's a time crunch now, because there may be a player that's in the portal like a Jakarius Peak who has 8 contracts in front of them, and they could sign any of them at any time. So it's crazy. And those are the people that you won't probably ever see, but that deserve all the credit in the world. And I know there are times when I've called them at like literally 1 a.m. To get something done, and they turn around and get it done for us. So, it makes me proud as someone who works here, but also as an alum. And if you're out there as an alum listening, or you're a fan, to know that like the support that we have here, from the top we're talking here, all the way on down, it is phenomenal, and it'll continue to be that way. So proud to say that those are all the people that sort of help out in that process, and make it so we have a chance, right? All it does is give you a chance, and then we've got to hit on our evaluations, and I'm accountable to that. Our coaches are accountable to that. Our head coach is accountable to that. And now it's time to develop them in the weight room and the nutrition program, and coach them up, and get them ready to play. Because we're not naive. We know our jobs are valued on wins and losses, right? But all those things matter to equal us being able to go out on Saturdays and win football games.
For sure, man. Let's Darren, before we let you get out of here, man, let's talk about a couple more specifics. You mentioned Lenoris's kind of involvement and offensive line targets, wide receiver targets. When he shared, I think it was on his Instagram, something about Nitro Tuggle very early on in the portal window. Gamecock fans started like, "Hey, is South Carolina involved here? Let me start watching some film on Nitro Tuggle." Obviously, you guys were connected with Jaden Gibson, I feel like, relatively early in that process as well. You were able to close out like both of those recruitments, both of those targets. What can you tell us, man, about how or what you feel like you added to the receiver room in those two guys that have kind of, I would say, a little bit different skill set among or between the two guys?
Yeah, I think Nitro brings make you miss ability, twitch, explosiveness. That is, he has rare twitch. And there's a reason that Georgia signed that guy out of high school, and that he started as a true freshman there, and then did what he did this past season at Purdue. And that's a guy that him and Lenoris connected very early on once he decided to enter his name into the portal. And they started to develop a relationship. And obviously, he was already on a list that we had identified as guys that had entered the portal at that position. And it was sort of a really good match, a really good fit into that room that we not that we didn't have, but just another guy that has that explosiveness that you're looking for. And then Jaden Gibson, I think, is he's a guy that if he can return to form, which is what we hope, and he's fully healthy. He's had some tough injury breaks in his career, but this is a guy that started as a true freshman at Oklahoma, and in 2023, and when he was fully healthy, was a dude, right? And not many guys have the length that he has, and the speed that he has, and the catch radius that he has. And myself and Brian, when we worked at Oregon, we helped recruit Dylan Gabriel there, and Dylan came from Oklahoma. And so we called Dylan about Jaden, and he said, "You guys need to take him right now." And that he's a dude. So that meant a lot to us, knowing who Dylan Gabriel is, and his word meant a lot. And, we did our research a little bit further on him as well. I think he's a guy that has the potential to have some high upside if he can get back to form. And that's what we're counting on him to do. And I think he has all the ability in the world to do that. And then, the guy that I think has an awesome story is DJ Black. A guy that came here as a walk-on, then went to Limestone College, where his head coach was Mike Furry, goes to UCF, and then has the ability to come back home and be coached by Coach Furry. So that guy can absolutely fly. He's got speed for days, and he's got 1 year left. And I think for him, the ability to come back here on scholarship now, and be able to help us out in his final year means so much to him, and he's hit the ground running. And then what we were able to retain in that room and bring back, we were talking about this room and the potential that it had last year. Well, all those guys are a year older now, and they've all pretty much had the ability to play. So it's time for those guys to take a step up, and they've all been able to get their feet wet, and now they know what it's like in a college football program. And I think even a Donovan Murph, still hasn't even been in the program a year, right? So as he came in the summer, Henry class. So there's still a lot of growth that's going to happen, but they're still relatively young. So I think we have a good mixture now between the three different receiver spots. And, you have Mazio coming back again. That's a leader and has seen a lot and done a lot and played a lot of football now. It's crazy to even think about that now in his third year, right? So I think we have a really good mixture. And again, I sound like a broken record here, but competition is a core value of our program. And, I think we were able to add three guys into the mix there, and they're all gelling really, really, really well. And they've been in the indoor throwing with Lenoris and Cutter and Duck and those guys, and they're developing some chemistry. And I think, the more guys we can have in that room, competition will bring the best out. And we're going to play a lot of those guys this year.
Darren, I want to hit on a couple of the defensive guys as well that you brought in at some key positions. Lose Jalen Kilgore, Cisse, a couple guys that could play nickel. Cisse could play corner nickel. Kilgore, obviously nickel, could play safety at the next level as well. And so you guys were targeting a nickel. There was a guy out there in Quay Scott that made all the sense in the world because he's from the state of South Carolina, played a couple seasons in the SEC at Kentucky, still has upside, even though he's done some good things. And then also Caleb Herring, the former number one player in the state of Tennessee out of high school, I think in the 2023 class.
Yeah.
Look back at him. He's, had 2 sacks against Georgia last year, 2 sacks against Mississippi State, but you get the sense that, hey, he's still got some meat on the bone in terms of his development potential as well. Tell us about those guys.
Yeah. I'll start with Quay Sheed. I think, was a guy that they really liked out of high school here. I wasn't here yet, but, obviously, that Coach Gray really liked coming out. And then you saw what he was able to do, and we got to see firsthand what he was able to do. Obviously, we won that football game, but you go back and you analyze the tape and then watch what he was able to do the rest of the year. Had some big-time interceptions, had a big-time interception against Florida. I think he's a different type of nickel than Jalen Kilgore was because, like you said, Jalen will probably be a safety at the next level because Jalen's probably 210 pounds. Quishi's not going to be that, but he's got crazy twitch. But he's also not afraid to hit you and come down and hit you in the run game. And you have to have that ability to play nickel in this scheme. So different body types, right? That can play nickel. And I think it just made so much sense. It's a kid that's, from the state, like you said, is kin to TJ Sanders, wanted to come back home. And it was just a perfect fit. And we had a need, and he had a want, and that fit. So we're excited about him, and I think he can still play some corner too if you need him to. But I think we're looking at slotting him into that nickel spot. But we've got some other guys as well. There will be competition. But I don't ever question anything that Torian Gray does on the football field because that guy is an elite developer of talent. If you have any qualms about that, just watch the Super Bowl this Sunday and let me know what you think about Nicky Manwari and what he's been able to do. So I think that was an attractive thing for Quay Sheet as well, is to come home, number one, but number two, to be developed by Torian Gray. And he'll have 2 more draft picks this year, like you said, and Brandon Cisse, hopeful first-round pick, and then Jalen Kilgore hopefully will get taken pretty high as well. And then Caleb Herring was super interesting. So obviously, when you lose a Brian Thomas on the opposite of Dylan Stewart, you need another guy there. And the last couple of years, everyone that we've put on that other side of Dylan Stewart has done really well. Obviously, Kyle Kennard won the Nagurski Award and is in the NFL. And then Brian Thomas, who, was afforded a bunch of opportunities to play in some postseason games and will now have a chance at getting drafted. And I think he will and should. And that was an attractive thing for a lot of the edges that were in the portal, was the ability to play on the opposite of Dylan, because those guys know that they're going to get one-on-one matchups with a tackle, right? Because as you guys know, a lot of people are either going to double Dylan or they're going to chip him. So they're going to tackle over, they're going to use a tight end, or a running back to chip him, cut him, hold him. All those sort of things. So if that guy on the other side wins his one-on-one, he's going to get a lot of sacks. And he's gonna improve his draft stock. So Caleb was a guy that we were in communication with, and had some other really good options, but ultimately he chose to wanting to be able to play for the ability to be on the other side of Dylan Stewart. And not only Caleb, but Drew Collins as well. And then I think we've got a lot of other guys coming back too that are going to hopefully be healthy coming off injuries, and then add in Julian Walker to that mix. Who we signed out of Dutch Fork. That is going to be a force as well. So not exactly sure what that rotation looks like right now as we sit here February 3rd, but I think we're encouraged. And obviously, the more bodies that you can have, the better. And like I said, competition is a core value of the program. And I think all those guys know that there's a spot there, and it also keeps Dylan fresh as well. We all know he was dealing with an injury, and he's going to get beat up and stuff like that in the 9-game SEC schedule, and what teams try to do to him. And he's as tough as they come, but he's only one man, and so we can have more bodies out there, the better, to keep him fresh.
Darren, you brought up Julian. That's 2 straight years of getting Dutch Fork guys here locally. Being able to go into the Dutch Forks, the Irmos of the world. I know it's got to be important to you guys, and we don't have time to go into the entire class, but I do want to maybe hit on the high school class a little bit. You mentioned Julian. Man, there's some really intriguing guys in here. I got to see Jazavian Currents, throughout his career, and then the Shrine Bowl just physically looks like a difference maker. Some offensive lineman that looks the part. Landon Duckworth, so you have your high upside QB in the mix. Take it whatever direction you want, man, with this high school class. I know you guys got to be kind of looking at that group saying, on paper, there's a lot to maybe work with here.
Yeah, we're really excited. I think for us, it was less is more, right? And we didn't need to go out and sign, the 25, 30-person class like some of these other schools did. We wanted to keep it relatively small, but they're all really good football players. And, obviously, Julian is a huge factor in that. But I think Noah Clark's come in here and impressed a lot of people and has a chance. And you can never have enough big bodies on the interior D line in this league. And, he's got some crazy twitch for the size that he is. And all these guys have come in here eager, knowing that competition is a core value. And I know I sound stupid to keep saying that, but it's ingrained in all of our brains to say that. And then it's true though. And so no one's spot is guaranteed right now. Right. And so I think all those guys come in here knowing that they have an opportunity to compete. And watching Currents and what he's been able to do and come into the mix, and the Cassie Barnes at corner, from Grimsley, and that's what you want him to look like now, is between Currents at safety and Cassie at corner, right? And then obviously Duck has taken on the little brother role to Lenor, even though there's Jaden, but as a quarterback, and following him around, and he's already put on some weight. And it's just good to you recruit these guys for so long, and then they're in the building every day, and it's like you kind of forget. So you go close relationships with them, so it's good to see those guys around here and in the building. And then obviously Zion Giles is here. We're still waiting on Darius Gray, which we'll get here in the summer. But I mean, I think we've got some offensive linemen in high school that are going to hopefully compete for spots, right? And if not, right now, those, as in a Shane Beamer run football program, your spot is by the week around here. So we're going to play the best guys that practice the best in practice. So I think everyone knows that, and they come in here. I think they're all kind of really excited. And, the Harris twins have done an awesome job since they've gotten here, and bringing a lot of juice and energy and their enthusiasm to work. And I think it's a really newfound energy, with those guys, and every year is different. But between the transfer portal class that we signed and the high school class, I think we're really encouraged with the vibe and the energy and the enthusiasm that those guys have brought already to workouts. You sort of see it, and it's organic, right? It's not forced. And sometimes, our coach, when our coaches are not even around, they're still doing that, and they're doing it when no one's kind of watching, right? And so it's been fun to watch that so far. Does that equal success immediately? No. But it's just a good sign, you know what I mean? And I don't want people to be like, oh, Darren's saying we're going to be awesome this year. I don't know that. I just know that we're giving ourselves a chance, and we're doing all the right things that we should be doing. Our guys are, on and off the field. Our coaching staff is from a preparation standpoint, and that's all you can really ask for at this point, being February 3rd. And you look forward to going into finishing, the winter strong and starting spring ball off, and away you go.
Darren, let me hit you with kind of a calendar logistics question here as we sit here on February 3rd. Obviously, the bulk of everything recruiting is finished, right? It's kind of funny that, I guess tomorrow, the 4th, would technically be signing day back in the day. Not as
Yeah.
much anymore, right? That's kind of a non-event. But what does the rest of, let's just say the spring, right? What does the rest of the spring look like from a recruiting standpoint? And then even though the portal window is closed, is there any possibility to add some guys at some point in the future? Say, what's the deal now with what are the rules today about grad transfers? Because they changed 12 times since 2 years ago. What is the kind of process like going forward for recruiting?
Yeah, so obviously we're in a dead period right now in February. Opens back up in March. All right, so guys will be able to come watch spring ball. So we encourage everybody to come watch spring ball. And to me, that's way more beneficial than anything else. Because to me, we encourage guys to come watch your position coach your position. Right, it's better than any video or presentation. Literally, if you're an offensive lineman, come watch Coach Clem coach the offensive line, because I promise you, he's not going to change how he coaches just because said prospect is standing there. All right, we're trying to get better, right? And if you really want to know what a program looks like, come watch them practice. All right, and I'll put our practices up against anybody in terms of how we do things, right? And so I want guys to come watch that. I want guys and their families to come watch that. And it's not for everybody, right? And if you don't like that, that's fine, and you can, go somewhere else. But I think that there's a lot for us to not even sell. We don't have to sell it, just come witness it. And I think they will like that. And usually the guys that we're recruiting, they come away after watching a practice and they're encouraged by that, right? So we'll finish up spring ball in mid-April, and then April, May, you're allowed to go out on the road recruiting. Head coach is not allowed to go out on the road. So it's just be myself and 9 other assistant coaches that are allowed to go out on the road recruiting. And then into high schools, kind of like we just were. You can't have contacts, but you can go into high schools, right? And it's really where you get ahead a little bit on the class of 2028, 2029. I think we're even in 2030 now, which is pretty crazy. So we'll do a lot of that stuff. We're going to hit a lot of the local schools here in South Carolina, make sure we're taking care of the state. All right. That's really important to us. As you kind of alluded to earlier, we always want to sign the best players in this state. And even when they don't have a guy, we need to go by and we love our high school coaches in the state. I think they do a phenomenal job. And a lot of them have become good friends of, myself, Coach Beamer, and a lot of our other coaches. And we invite those guys out to spring ball too. A lot of professional development gets done then. Coach Beamer is awesome with that. He's very open to a lot of high school staffs coming out and spending a couple days with us and learning and developing with them. And then, as you get in, then you have the May starts some official visits. And then you get into June official visits, and then you're July dead, and then it's fall camp, man. So you're rolling from there. In terms of transfers, there is no more transfer portal in the spring, so that is now gone. However, there's still the opportunity for us to potentially add somebody if they're a graduate. So if they have graduated from their institution, there's the possibility of us, potentially adding them if we, have spots left in our 105.
Darren, you've been very generous with your time, man. We could sit here, I'm sure, and all just talk ball for hours, but we'll let you get back to what you got to do there at the facility, man. But as always, dude, we've enjoyed it. Lots of great information. I hope you guys get a little bit of a reset now, because I know once once the March ball starts rolling, as you just laid out, y'all are next thing you know, you'll be in the middle of June and y'all be working like 22-hour days. So
Yeah, well, I just got done working 22-hour days, so I mean, and that's why I have a couch here because I was sleeping in this thing. But you got to do what you got to do. It takes what it takes, right? But I appreciate y'all having me on. I always love visiting with you guys, and I think you guys do an awesome job. Your content that you guys put out is top notch, man. And I think fans are lucky to have y'all covering the Gamecocks for sure.
we appreciate that, brother. We'll have your Brunt workwear boots shipped over there too for the just so you'll be ready for the snow in 2 years probably, if we're being honest about Columbia. But you'll have them for the road. How about that? When you're
okay,
out
perfect. Yeah, I need that. I might not need them in the spring when I go out, but I'll need them here soon. So please send those over ASAP.
No doubt. All right, I'm Wes. He is Chris, and he is South Carolina Director of Player Personnel, Darren Uscher. Thank you all, anybody who's joined us, watched, listened. If you're just joining us, go back. You can hear the whole thing on the podcast platform or on our YouTube here on Gamecock Central. Otherwise, we are out. Chris and I will be back later on this week to catch up with you then. Again, thanks to Darren. Thanks to everybody else for joining us. Thanks to our sponsors, and we'll see you soon.